to Get Real with Asil, a woman empowerment podcast hosted by Asil Al-Baba. Hello and welcome to another episode of Get Real with Asil. Today is Monday, April 30th, 2018. I am extremely happy to be recording this podcast because it marks the 1-year anniversary for this podcast. So I thought I would dedicate this specific episode to just reflect on my journey so far, tell you a little bit about why I started this and how it's been going since I started exactly a year ago, May 1st, 2017. So to start, I think it's important for you to understand the importance of women empowerment for me and why it speaks so much to my heart. So the reason I started this project, essentially, it was dedicated for a women empowerment movement. I wanted this podcast to empower women around the world to believe in themselves and be unapologetically themselves. So I was raised by an incredible, amazing mother who single-handedly raised 3 teenagers. She was a single mom. We left Lebanon, that was a country that's war-torn, and we came to Canada and pretty much established ourselves from the scratch. My mother couldn't speak English that much. We were teenagers. I was 16, my sister was 14, and my brother was 12. So you can only imagine the stress that my mother had to go through, the challenges she had to overcome, the strength she had to muster in order to raise 3 kids on her own in a country where she knew nobody and she couldn't even speak the language. So today, I'm a financial planner, my sister is an architect, and my brother is in med school. And this is really just a very inspiring story for me to share because my mother's strength proved to be, one of a kind. And one of the quotes that stand out for me is, you never know how strong you are until being strong is your only option. So I watched my mom go through all sorts of turbulences in her life, and I felt that had she not been the, strong woman she is, things could have easily went wrong in my family. And not to say that our journey was easy, it's absolutely far from it. But we had the resiliency of a woman that held the whole family and glued the whole family together. So that we can grow and become the individuals we are today in society to contribute back to it. Now, on a challenging side, though, my mother's identity was heavily linked to ours. So in a Middle Eastern culture where we came from in Lebanon, it's very typical that a woman grows up knowing that she's a daughter, and then she becomes a wife, and then she becomes a mother. So her identity is always linked to that of a family. And not to say there's anything wrong with that, but to have your identity linked to the roles of those around you and not to have anything beyond it could be shattering, especially when your kids grow up and they become independent and they're going out and about in their own world. So at that point, when my mother heavily invested in us, everything she has, we became, strong, and we're growing and we're maturing. It became really hard for her the less dependent we became on her, because her identity and her life purpose was linked to us. So my mother went through really tough times. I've seen her go through depression, and it really was one of the most emotional periods in my life to see the backbone of your existence be, just shattered. And it was really tough for me. And I wish I knew how to empower her, to have her believe in herself again, to have her see the fruit of her labor, and to actually help her find her identity beyond that role of definition of a mother and the role of who she is as a soul in relevant to society. So that's how this women empowerment movement started in my head. And on the other hand, when I reflect on my own journey as a woman myself, I reflect about all the challenges that I personally have been through. So I shared a few of them through different episodes, but to sum it up, I've been through many situations where I didn't know how to love myself. I didn't even know what self-worth is. I was bulimic and I had really bad body image issues. And I attracted the wrong partners in my life. I was stuck in abusive and possessive relationships that were extremely detrimental to my health and to my growth as an individual. So I also had to reflect on what it is about the conversation I was having with myself that allowed me to attract the wrong relationships in my life and to be stuck in a cycle that was just very negative. And in reflecting on that, I had to empower my own self so that I can be a symbol of strength to other women out there as well. I've encountered many challenges, from fighting bulimia, which is a eating disorder, to being sexually assaulted, to just being in abusive relationships, and anything a woman can encounter. I've pretty much encountered myself. And that's why this movement for me is very personal, because you learn a lot from the lowest periods in your life. And I believe so much in the power of storytelling. This is what my brand is. Authenticity and real is really showing your face and showing who you are, and taking pride in the journey you're on, taking pride of the lessons you learn and sharing them wholeheartedly with the world. And there's something so miraculous about what happens when you share your story, because what happens is your story becomes a tool of inspiration to other people. And once you share it, it no longer defines you. It no longer takes over your life. Now it just becomes a chapter in a book that continues to be written by you. And this is ultimately the power of storytelling. It simply empowers you to look at whatever events take place in your life as simple chapters that you overcame. And this is why I believe in the power of storytelling, the power of sharing, and the power of being vulnerable. There's nothing harder than being vulnerable, but also sharing your vulnerability with others and pretty much exposing who you are and everything you've been through and your thoughts and feelings, and just putting everything out there to the world. It's really not easy, because you're opening yourself to so much criticism, but you're also inspiring and impacting people along the way. And my desire to impact and my desire to inspire far outweigh the fear I have of rejection and judgment and failure. And that's why I keep going. So in reflecting on my journey in the past year, it's been such an incredible pleasure. There's episodes where I shared various hacks or self-development tools that I came across from the readings I did. So whether it's books that I summarized, whether it's articles I came across, or whether it's courses that I've attended, I shared different things that I've learned and lessons to empower you and give you these tools as well. I've also interviewed incredibly amazing people with different walks of life and different inspirational stories as well, so we can learn from them. And we discussed many different topics, from the power of habits to, different routines, success principles, the different issues that our society goes through. And all these issues I was discussing, whether with people I'm interviewing or within myself, were all meant to give you tools as well to reflect on and make the most out of your life. So this is why this podcast exists. And although it started as a women empowerment journey, as I went through it, every episode had its different color. And I just thought at the end of the day, women empowerment is not just about women. It's really every single person in the society, because we're all very connected. We are all born by women, and we're all raised by women, and we all have women in our lives. So women empowerment is about every single person of us. It really is a full circle. So I just also wanted to reflect on something I came across. It's a beautiful quote by Ted Roosevelt. And this is to talk about the criticism I've received along the way. There's obviously a lot of feedback that was positive and beautiful. And even if it's critical and it's harsh to hear, if it's coming from a place where people give it to me for my growth and for my improvement, I'll always happily receive it, no matter how harsh it is. But there's also another sort of criticism that's simply meant to defeat you and simply meant to put you down. There's always haters along any journey you take, and a lot of us are crippled by fear, and we even don't dare to do anything simply because of what this particular step could expose us to as far as criticism and judgment is concerned. So for those of you who are listening to this podcast right now and have been thinking about a specific project that you want to work on, whatever that project may be, if it's personal or professional in your development, I know the fear that you may be going through right now because I've experienced it at different times in my life. And I want to offer you this particular quote by Theodore Roosevelt. So here it goes. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, who is faced and marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. And who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spent himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And this is really such a beautiful, powerfully set quote, because ultimately, if you don't try, you can't succeed. And know that while you're trying, there's gonna be success and failures along the way. It's just part of your journey. But as long as you're receiving feedback from those that are trying with you, in the arena with you, and not just watching on the sidelines, then these are the people that are meant to empower you and strengthen you, and you can move forward with them. So do not at all give any type of attention to any sort of feedback or criticism coming from people on the sidelines. However, devote your time and attention to those feedback that are given by those in the arena who are also daring greatly, who are also exposing themselves, learning and impacting the world just like you are. And this is something I'm very passionate about because our journey is never ending. Our learning is never ending. Our growth is never ending. And yes, there's episodes I look back at and I listen to myself and I feel horrible and embarrassed because of all the, whether it's pronunciation errors I've done or whether it's the content itself that lacked, whether it's structure or lacked clarity or even lacked depth, because sometimes I didn't have them as much time to prepare for certain episodes, but I simply wanted to remain consistent and deliver upon my promises. So it was all part of my learning process, and some episodes were very well prepared and others were simply not. But I keep going, and I look forward to what the new year will bring me as far as new episodes are coming. To reflect on the statistics, I didn't make an effort to promote this episode or this podcast in any way. It was simply an organic project that I wanted it to take its course of action and see what happens. I barely, I just used to share it on my LinkedIn and automatically it shared on YouTube and iTunes, but I never did any sort of promotion. And so far, I've released 100 episodes and I have about 2,000 downloads. So that's about 200 downloads per episode, more or less. And sorry, I did the math wrong. That's 20 That's 20 downloads per episode, more or less, which is fine because they're organic growth, and as long as I'm still providing any sort of help or tools or inspiration to anybody that listens, I'll happily continue to do it, even if it's just a small amount. However, moving forward, I would likely look forward to growing my listeners, but also to strengthen the content that I share. That's ultimately the value I can provide you with and the promise I owe you. So thank you so much for all your support. Listening to this episode is truly very, very important for me, because it tells you how I started, why I'm doing this, and also what I plan to do in the future. This is my absolutely fabulous moment to acknowledge the 1-year anniversary for this podcast and everything it brought me. So I just want to leave it at that. I've just spoke to you off the cuff here, and nothing I just said was prepared. I just simply closed my eyes and spoke from the bottom of my heart. And I hope that I hear from you, because I want to do better. And for me to do better, I'd like you to tell me what topics you'd like me to explore, what people you'd like me to interview, what would you like to see from me moving forward, so that we can start this new year fresh, and it'll be something that we can even improve upon together. Because your feedback ultimately is the fuel I need to just get myself to the next level. So I will leave it at that, short and sweet. I look forward to future episodes so we can learn, grow, and most importantly, get real together. Take care, everybody.